Welcome to the Create and Grow Your Brain Capital podcast. I am your host, Genein Ledford, and you know me, I always love bringing the top minds to the show to share their wisdom, their experience, their jewels in how to live a wonderful brain capital life. So as you know, brain capital is brain health, right? Having a healthy brain, as much as health, whatever health means to you, and brain skills, which is creativity, adaptability, resilience, and of course of our work, artistry as well. So I am honored is not even the word, but I am revered and honored to bring to you someone who has been a mentor, a guide, just leader in my own life. Pastors, I still call you pastor.
Sure.
Tymme Reitz, and just an amazing man. And I'm going to read his bio so you know who you are about to meet. Tymme Reitz was living the dream, performing on Hollywood film sets and global stages along icons like the Backstreet Boys, Will Smith, Madonna, Aaliyah, Shanice, Missy Elliott. Fame, success, and the spotlight. It looked like he had it all. But everything changed when Jesus interrupted his story. In a life-altering encounter, Tymme realized that the very gift that elevated him to the stage was actually a calling meant for something greater. Alongside his wife, another mentor and guide and brilliant woman, Ari Reitz, he walked away from the spotlight to pioneer Word in Motion Dance Company, sparking a movement that impacted dancers around the world. Today, Tymme and Ari Reitz are pastors of Connect LA Ministries and continue to inspire others through their work, their message, and their podcasts. I'm excited to announce on here, along with the book, Dancing with God. In his new book, Dancing with God, Tymme shares the powerful journey of surrender and what happens when your gift becomes your calling. Welcome to the podcast, Pastor Tymme.
Oh, so good to be on. Thank you,
Yes,
Janine.
yes,
Appreciate it.
I know it's been a while. I've been trying to get you on for a while, really focusing on the choreograph part and the dancing part. But I'm glad
Yeah.
that happened now because we still get to talk about that. But we're
Yeah.
talking about it around this amazing launch with your work of art and your work of heart, basically as well.
Yeah.
Dance with God. First of all, if you could, I gave a small bio background, but really, how did you get to where you are today with dancing and choreographing in
Yeah.
the entertainment industry?
I think I kind of stumbled into choreographing and dancing and performing. Um, I never meant to be in the industry. That was not my intention. But somehow I took a few classes at a studio and they said, "We like the way you move. Can we give you a scholarship?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll take a scholarship. That means it's free classes, right? For 6 months. I'm in." And that's how I kind of entered into the dance industry. I always danced as a street dancer, but never thought about making it a career. Um, but yeah, since I was 10 years old, I've been a dancer and then finally had that opportunity. So that's how I kind of entered in, you know, accidentally kind of, walked into this industry without knowing that this was going to be the path that I would, you know, eventually journey on.
And it's so funny how we say accidentally, but being a man of faith, that there's nothing by accident, right? And I remember I heard this quick story of this man who he plays a violin. He was doing shows and everything, and I was like, "How'd you get to be on the violin?" He was like, "I was walking home from school and stay at the park, and my mom got scared, so she moved me to the school down the street that was just being built, and happened to be an art school. So I picked the violin, and now he travels the world, but." Had he not stopped at that park, he would
Right.
to the art school. It's so weird how just things set themselves up, and I don't think I've ever heard that story from you, even though I've known you since 2008, I believe, because I was a year or two before I met the person who you married me to, Shane Letford. And I saw when I saw you, you were a junior pastor of a church in Southern California. And is that where you started dancing in Word in Motion, or did you start it before that?
Uh, no, we were attending that church when Word of Motion was first launched.
Mm.
And so actually that was the only church that we attended when we first gave our lives to Christ, before we launched out and created our own church, or established our own church. But yeah, that's where Word of Motion was birthed during that era, during that season when we were both going to that church before, you know, we branched off.
And part of this podcast is really to hear your story and pull out the gems. My logo is the diamond. And
Hey,
what it to think about starting a dance troupe or dance group, and then actually do it, are two completely different things. Really, what motivated you to get people together and get schedules together and choreograph, and then get shows to actually compete at or perform at? What did that look like?
great question. I write that in the book actually.
Oh, great.
Um, No, because my wife and I had a lot of nevers, things that we won't touch, things that we will back away from. And one of the things we said we wouldn't do is start a dance company. We had a friend that was running and directing a dance company, and she was just telling us how it was a big headache. It is so difficult to manage a group of artists, a group of dancers, and
It's
to fulfill the mission. It costs a lot of money. And so she just looked stressed out, right? And she's a professional choreographer, and we knew her from the industry. And we said, that doesn't sound fun. That's the last thing we want to do. Then the second thing we said, we never wanted to be a pastor. That's another thing we said didn't look fun and wasn't something we wanted to accomplish or anything we wanted to pursue in our lives. And so that was our standard. That was our conviction. We said we don't want to start a dance company. I got awakened by the Lord at 4 a.m. and he
mm,
says, I want you to start a company. I said, okay, when you say it, it's a lot different than just having a tossed around conversation with my wife. And so I started writing down this idea of starting a company. He said, your mission will be to develop a nation of dancers for Christ. You'll call it Word in Motion Dance Company. So everything was birthed at 4 in the morning in a journal. And that's how it started. And when my wife and I hear something from God directly, we move into action. We never hesitated. We said, okay, let's gather all these dancers that we've been hanging with, that we've been, doing these special little ministry shows together with, and tell them about it. And they all were on board. And that's how Word Emotion was birthed.
wow, wow. And I've been doing a lot of research on trees. And when you see, like, that story is a tree, because when you think about trees, you think about carbon dioxide, and the tree takes in the carbon dioxide, shoots off the oxygen for us, but takes the carbon, which is a gas, and creates the bark, creates the leaves, creates the fruit. So the things, the invisible to the visible, that's what you just did, right? You took that invisible instruction, those invisible ideas, and
Yeah,
made them first visible in your journal. I believe everyone should journal, by the way. That's just me. Um, and then you have this company, but and that's powerful to remind people. Even the book, if you can hold your book up, right? That started as an invisible idea, right?
right.
What was the process for you to move things from the invisible to the visible, like the tree that you are, with neurons? Neurons means tree, by the way. No, dendrites means tree. Your
Got
dendrites,
it.
your brain. So what was
Got
that
it.
for you?
Well, in 2025, the Lord asked us to close the chapter of Word in Motion. We've been active for 22 years, and we had hosted 15 dance festivals,
Mhm.
several events, Step of Hope, and all these different outreaches. And so it was just that time where Word in Motion had to close, especially after the pandemic, when a lot of our dancers moved, a lot of our dancers got married and pregnant, a lot of our dancers kind of stopped doing dance as a part of ministry and moved on to other skills and other ambitions.
Mhm.
And so Word of Motion was just kind of getting a tight squeeze of just a few people left. And we held on for a while, but we weren't really doing anything active. And we just knew that eventually we have to pull the plug. And when I did that, or when he asked us to do that, he said to do one more dance festival. And we did one in July of 2025. Um, that was the time that Dancing with God, the concept of Dancing with God, was considered. We thought about doing some kind of show with Dancing with God throughout the years. Ari and I just felt like God was nudging us to create something called Dancing with God, and we put that on the shelf. He says, when you say go, we'll go.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the time he said, I want you to write a book. I want you to start a podcast. I want you to share testimonies and share stories and share the legacy of Word in Motion Dance Company and the impact it's made. And it's funny because um, a lot of people are, messaging us and letting us know like this changed our lives because of Word in Motion, because of the dance festival, because of your mentorship. We're just getting a lot of great feedback from people sharing about the impact that Word in Motion has made on their lives. And so that inspires me to continue to do the podcast and continue to tell stories of so many, because I've met hundreds of dancers that are making a difference around the world. I already have about 60 guests lined up for the podcast. So I have about 2 years worth of guests just because we've met so many incredible people that have
Mm-hmm.
amazing stories about their dance journey. And so we'll definitely not run out of resources on telling these stories. So this is an important segment, important season for people to understand how dance is such a major has played in such a major role in ministry, and it's still so undercover, it's still so unseen. And so Dancing with God is really just us waving the flag, like look what God's doing through dance, and look how powerful this opportunity is to use dance to be an extension of God's love, to make him visible, to make him seen. Like you're talking about things being seen. Dance brings something that's invisible and makes it visible. I think artistry is so beautiful in that manner that people can see God through our expression of the gift that we've been given in particular.
That's so powerful, and there's so much there. Going back to the statement made of, there's nothing by accident, that things are planned, purposely so, in order to take us through the journey, to build us up, right? To build us up to our calling. I always tell people that I was placed under your leadership. I believe for so many reasons, but that was so I can see it in action. Right, watching Pastor Ari, watching you and your teachers who have taught under you, being trained under people who can see a concept or see a message or see the emotional aspect and then move it physically. We call it rendering it in physical form, was my personal training, because that's what I do now, right? Like, what does leadership look like, or what does journeying through conflict look like, or even with the little ones, what does the life cycle of a butterfly look like, move it out through your body. But I don't think I would have had the level of expertise had I not been under your training for 15 years, not even dance training, just training in different areas. Have you ever saw yourself at that level, like a professorship of even, separate of the ministry and the spiritual growth, just a trainer of creative thinking and leadership skills, and just higher cognitive skill growth that you were automatically doing in addition to your spiritual journey, leadership?
Um, I don't really imagine myself in that role, but I would gladly step into any role that I feel God is leading me. And so it's not something I'm wrestling with and you know tossing around as a concept for the next stage of my life, but I'm just an open book, really, just a
Well,
surrender.
not for the future, but you've been in that role. That's what I'm trying to.
Oh, okay.
Like, have you ever thought of yourself like, oh wait, I was a professor of the like, because that's what you were doing. You just may not have been aware of it.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah. I see what you're saying. No.
You're, you're doing.
That's a short answer. No, I haven't, but if someone sees me as that, I'll embrace it and I'll be that for them. I just want to be a support, a cheerleader, a person that inspires and pushes people forward. However we want to label it is fine with me. If that's how you see it, or if that's how someone else sees it,
Mhm.
I will not resist that. If someone needs me in that role because it does help them and motivate them to embrace some of the things that they're trying to conquer or accomplish. So absolutely, but I don't look at myself and reflect as as someone like that, but you know.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I certainly see you in those multiple hats. And so one aspect, because I didn't get to read the book because it's not out yet. So go put it on your to get list. But one aspect of dancing with God that I've felt is that sensitivity and awareness. And so what are some points that you bring up in the book, and do they speak to people really growing with that sensitivity and awareness?
Yeah, I think dance causes such a strong awakening and awareness of that realm of God's presence. I have had, um, for myself personally, I have had the greatest experiences, encounters with God through dance, not just through prayer, not just at a Sunday church service, not at an outreach where people are intentional and they're hungry for God and they're seeking Him and they're trying to draw on His presence and ask Him to show up, but actually performing a hip hop dance number, which
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people will think, okay, well, yeah, I'm sure you can have that level of sensitivity and awareness if you're doing something that in a liturgical fashion or those type of traditions, and I'm sure people have, but I'm doing hip hop, and I share that in the book. One of the greatest encounters I've had, even to this day, is when I was dancing in Hollywood, or yeah, in Hollywood at a stage in Hollywood. It's an outreach that called Project Dance LA, and in the middle of dancing, I felt like the whole world shut down and I just felt God's presence and God's love and God's grace. I started weeping and I'm dancing a hard hitting hip hop number. You're right. I've got baggy jeans on and, I got my full street gear and I'm just weeping while I'm dancing. I get off stage and I'm like hyperventilating because I just felt his warmth. I felt his grace. And I just kept on saying thank you because I've never felt grace like that. And it wasn't something that I could explain. Ultimately, it's something I experienced personally, but I knew it was him and he was just all over me. And the natural realm, the physical realm, the tangible realm did not exist. I was just in his presence.
Mm-hmm.
And those who are followers of Christ that might be watching this, they'll kind of know like that feeling when he just that warm blanket that comes upon you. But this was like electrifying. This was like radiating. This was a tangible fusion of heaven and myself colliding, and it was incredible. And that happened while I was dancing. So I think dance heightened that awareness. It heightened that sensitivity because it was a dance that was like an offering. As Christians who might be watching would understand that, and that sacrificial offering became an opportunity, a door that opened where God's presence just invaded my life, and it was amazing. And it happened a few times, and every time it happened, it was because I was dancing or using that gift to the fullness. But yeah, I've crossed over that threshold into that world several times where there was such an awareness and such a sensitivity. I hope that's what you talk about when you said sensitivity and awareness,
Yeah,
giving that example.
I've yeah, yeah, that's so much. And I've been, because you have watched me come through this, getting really deep into the neuroscience of our existence, and the technology has grown in the past, you're right, 10 20 years, since the fMRI came on scene in the late 90s. And now, they even put this apparatus on people's heads as they're dancing. And there's a lot more research coming out about prayer and spirituality and just things like that. So there's like the fields are just blowing up right now. But me coming from a faith-based position, but also the neuroscience and the education and the artistry, I get to see multiple facets and see where they intersect. With that, they are saying that the cerebellum, this part back here, is like your mini brain. There's more neurons back here than there is within the rest of the brain. And this is the part meant for balance, movement, and all of this good stuff. There's this recent research I just read that said the cerebellum, the two hemispheres, they're even saying that this is its own hemisphere. is also looking at the prefrontal cortex, monitoring the prefrontal cortex. So when you're moving, you're thinking better. And I would even say spiritually, I believe that's probably a part of it. The hardware is probably helping you with that software connection. But I just read a research paper about the flow, and even your language ability is heightened. Your ability to really think about language. Have you noticed anything with that as you move in your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. I think movement is language, and uh, the reason why God had us call our dance company Word in Motion, because we believe His Word is is life. Um, the scripture talks about it being energy or energies. Energies is the word. Uh, that word speaks about like this force of electricity that is moving, this in this realm that is unseen, and it's actually touching human beings. And so when we're dancing, we call it word in motion because we believe the word is in motion. So
Mhm.
whatever we're carrying, we're releasing to others. And so if we're carrying God's heart of love and or we're carrying peace, we believe that can actually enter in through the atmosphere, through our movement. And so we believe that's a language that begins to transcend beyond just like verbal communication. And dance is actually impacting people, whether they can recognize it or not. But I think it's touching hearts into deep spaces that only that visual beauty can apply. So yeah, I do believe that it communicates well.
Yes, and I totally forgot that connection. Word in motion. That's exactly what I just basically said. Is it language flow, communication, and with that, we've been doing also a lot of research on mitochondria, and I don't know if you've looked into that. It's the part of the cell that's basically known as like the energy or the engine of the cell, but they're finding out it's doing so much more. They're actually talking to one another. You have a lot of little mitochondria in one cell, and they're flowing and just doing that. But what Dr. Martin Burkhardt said, he said, we are energy. And your mitochondria is affected, of course, by food, and it needs oxygen. That's why we breathe fast after we've been dancing, because our
Yeah.
mitochondria needs fuel to keep the body moving. But he also says that it's attached to our emotions. But when he said we need to start seeing our bodies as an energy, flowing, right? And I never heard the word you said, energies. Was that the
I think
Greek?
it's energies,
And
energies.
yes.
And
And
and I believe it's Hebrew. Yeah.
once again, those connections, right, of the hard science and the biblical scriptures and psychology, right? It's all like kind of lining up. And with that, even said David danced, right? David danced. He danced very enthusiastically. How do you make those connections, especially now when people are very like sometimes I go to churches, and because I've been brought under your leadership, I'm in the back just dancing. People are like, what is she doing? Because everyone else is just standing very still, which no judgment. Folks do what they need to
Right.
do. But
Right.
I'm just like, how could you not move? Because your motor neurons, once they hear music, they're telling your body to move. So you're actually using more energy to stay still as
Yeah.
opposed to moving. But what do you think, we need a whole new training for those people who are looking to grow in their faith, to try to, would you challenge them to add that aspect? What would you do for that person who just wants to leap, but they're a little bit afraid?
Yeah, that's one of my missions is for people to listen to the podcast and be inspired to explore movement in their worship, to have that be an additional thing to what they already traditionally do. And we want to make sure dance doesn't, get shoved to the corner and is just something you consider to do during Easter holidays. We'll do a magical performance that will, you know, glorify our King. And we want to make sure that they know that dance is available anytime. And you don't have to be a dancer,
Mhm.
or you could be someone that just moves, just sways, and you're going to feel a difference, allowing your body to freely step into something that's beyond just being still.
Mhm.
I think when you look at David and his expression of of his adoration towards God, it was movement. It came out with dance. I don't think he took dance studio classes. I don't think he was highly trained as a dancer, but he danced. And um, I think that makes a difference to God, that we give a sacrifice with our bodies through movement. And I think a lot of people are just grown up under the church culture of traditionally you just stand still and um, I don't want to say anything negative about that because it's not you showed up and
Sure.
you're face to face with God and you're enjoying worship, but you maybe just have been confined and restricted because
Mhm.
you grew up with certain traditions that don't allow you to explore anything beyond the parameters of just being still in his presence.
Hi,
Um,
girls.
Sorry.
oh
So
hey.
no, I wanted to show this really quick to support a point that you were saying, and we do want to make sure that that is clear. Everyone is on their own journey, and we've
Absolutely.
all been in different social situations. The fact that I was under your leadership meant that I was almost given the freedom to explore that, whereas someone else who may are just introduced to you right now and are going to
Yeah.
check your podcast are just starting their journey to explore that. But I wanted to
Yeah,
show.
I'll just say it like this, Janine. It's an invitation. It's not like you got to do it this way, you got to do it our way, you're missing out. It's just an invitation. And if you never enter into this opportunity of using your body to worship God and through dance, that's perfectly fine. But we it's no judgment. It's not saying you're missing out the main elements. We're just saying, hey, look what's available.
Yeah. So
It's
there's
August 6th. Is that right?
Yeah.
August 6th. Little song.
You girls ready?
so I show that video in my training just to say, we come here ready to move. Like they
Yeah.
didn't go to your class, Pastor Timmy. They didn't read a book about moving. They got here and heard the music and moved.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I had an experience with the Lord where I was at a birthday party and all these kids were just, coming in. It was a children's birthday party. So these kids came in and this was early on in my faith walk. Uh, and suddenly music came on and every kid just started jumping up and down. No one told them, hey, when music comes on, dance. No,
Yeah.
they all were just in different corners of the room, but they all just started dancing. It erupted in dance. It became a dance party because that's what their instincts told them to do, and that's what music caused them to do. So they're using something that was not trained. No one says, hey, when someone presses play, we're
Move the left
conditioning
leg.
you. Right, we're conditioning you, training you to do this. It's already in them. And
Yeah.
so movement is already in us and we don't have to like shut that door because we became Christians and we need to be sophisticated in church, like, no, let's break out, let's go out for Jesus and dance.
So with that, I almost think, just I almost think that it's just we were hopefully meant to, and it's one form of expression. People are on their own journey with it. But even with singing, there's research that I saw that said singing really, are you aware of your vagus nerve, the nerve that goes from your brain all the way down to your microbiome area, your tummy area? And people who just sing, right, not professionally, but when you sing, it activates that, or it touches that. And so you're basically giving yourself almost like an inner massage and a calming massage when you sing. And for that person who was told, oh my gosh, don't open your mouth, you're awful singer in the third grade who never sang since, they now lost that tool for emotional regulation. I think dancing is a tool for so many things, including worshiping, but also emotional regulation and energy disbursement, right? You just feel better. And of course, working out, the exercise component of it as well. And the rhythmic aspect, people are using it in Parkinson's disease therapy and with that. And so what's another point that more advanced people in their walk and in their dance journey should be aware of? Because you're very, very into the work?
Oh, I think when you say advanced, you're talking about someone that actually dances continually. It's a part of their routine, or they're pursuing dance,
Yeah,
or
they're
taking classes.
not brand new people. They're not a professional. So kind of like me, I'm not a professional dancer, but I feel comfortable. But how do I kind of take it to the next level in my growth spiritually, movement wise, cognition wise?
Yeah, I think you start there. You just start to move. And I think the connection between the awareness of God, why you're moving, the why is important. When
Mhm.
you understand that relationship that you have with God, that you're dancing with Him, and that's why I call it dancing with God, not dancing for God.
Oh, that's good.
Um, you're actually in sync with Him. You're dancing with Him. There was a moment, and I wrote this in the book as well, where my wife was um, dancing over people in a form of prayer. It was at a church service that we were guest. Uh, the dance ministry were guest. We came to perform, but during a time where there was an altar call, and sometimes people are invited. If you've ever been to a church service, if they're feeling broken, or if they need healing, or they just need support, they'll come for prayer. And so the dancers were invited to the stage, just kind of pray over them as a prophetic symbol. Of saying, hey, God's covering you, and and we believe that the word is in motion, so we believe that we're releasing something for them to receive. There was a guy who, let's just say, he doesn't believe in these encounters that you can have with God. He was a strong Christian, loved God, but didn't believe that the supernatural realm would suddenly just transform into this realm, and where you can visibly see something taking place. And he looked up while Ari was dancing, and he just rubbed his eyes like, what's going on? Like, first of all, this is something he doesn't believe. He saw an angel dancing with my wife, and almost moving in sync with her, like
Mm.
just copying the movement as my wife was moving, the angel would move. And he was just kind of just stunned, just shocked at what he was seeing, because he's never seen anything like that. Like, I've seen some angels, and I've seen some, you know, demons, in my 30-year journey as a Christian. But he's never seen anything like that, nor did he believe that existed, that could happen to him. He would just kind of brush off those stories. And so, knowing that he was able, that God unveiled that realm for him, for him to actually experience that and see something that was taking place that only he was seeing. But that's what happens. We're dancing with angels. We're dancing with God. We're dancing with His army. We're dancing in close proximity to uh, the beings that exist in His realm, in the heavenly army. And I think that's something that's important for people to understand. You're not just dancing solo, you're actually dancing with God, and it's a beautiful and wonderful experience.
Yeah, and dancing, it's brought up a lot in scripture. Right, so as singing mentioned over 400 times, and you have to wonder why, right? And I like the fact that you use the, okay, here's my fourth grade education. The participle or the conjunction, right? Conjunction, junction, what's your function? The word with, right? That's a powerful conjunction. Because some of my studies, they talk about being in partnership, and co-creating, right? And there's a lot there, but yeah, that the reminder, right, that when you're moving, there's this whole other entity that you may not even be aware of. And I get up, I get up at 3 4 a.m. and I just move, and sometimes I open my windows. If anyone's up at that time, they were like, what is she doing? I have a candle in my window and I'm just singing, not singing loud, but like lip singing, because my kid is still asleep. And I'm just moving because I have to move just to get my day started right, and just enjoy and gratitude and in faith that what we're building is of substance, and going to help
Yeah,
many, but just to get connected,
yeah,
basically, is a powerful thing. And
yeah.
so, yeah, anything
I,
to. Respond.
Well, in John 15, it talks about, let's say the word that I used earlier, it's an invitation to abide with Christ.
Mhm.
And he welcomes us to abide with him, meaning to be completely yoked, completely integrated, completely connected, heart and heart, like hand in hand. And so that's where he welcomes every single human being on the face of this earth, right? To come into that place, that sacred place, and abide with him. And there's a whole illustration. I won't really go into it because if you read John 15, you'll see the beautiful. You talked about a plant. He talked about
Please.
God is the root, and he's we're the branches, and there's a whole wonderful thing that you who are watching can explore and read through the whole entire chapter. But the one thing that stood out to me as you were sharing right now about connection is Jesus asking us to abide with him.
Yeah.
And so it's not just like read about me, admire me from a distance, bring the level of reverence that is that qualifies you or that you're obligated. No, abide, like let's walk hand in hand. And he
Mhm.
talks about being the scripture later on speaks about us as disciples being friends with God.
Mhm.
And so we're just not just servants, we're not just slaves and vessels for his glory, that you're actually in friendship with God. So when you're dancing with your friend, you're
Mhm.
dancing with your father. This is a relational term. This is not just I'm dancing to worship God. Here's my offering. I'm just the lowest of lows. It's that false humility of I'm just coming before you to bring this offering. No, he was lift your chin up, dance with me, hold me, come close, lay your head on my shoulder. And that's where that's the intimate place we're invited to enter into. So I think it's an experience that I would want every Christian to draw among.
Yeah,
You have another brain analogy. I see it
yeah,
coming.
well, I would say an invitation to even those who don't believe or who are struggling or just kind of stepped away or just wherever they are, just kind of go for it, see what happens, no matter where you are, because you'd be surprised what what energy brings. And the analogy that I wanted to bring up is called neural synchronization. And you may have heard me talk about this before. When bodies are in sync, their brain waves actually sync up, right? And so when you are dancing with your dance company, and it actually increases collaboration, right? They're looking at dance in all types of areas: faith-based, non-faith-based, corporate, schools, community places. When people are moving together and singing together, by the way, when they're moving together, singing together, and telling stories together, their brain waves sync up. And so that came to mind when you're dancing with God. So
Yes.
what is that? What could that mean? The endless possibilities. And for me, there's another term called the default mode network, where some of my best ideas come to me at 4 a.m. in the morning when I'm dancing, to CC Winans in my ear. I'm like, oh, and I could talk about this idea and that's connected to that. And I'm over here just, flinging my arms and everything. Has some of your best ideas come to you when you were just freestyling and improvising?
Yeah, actually, what I shared earlier, just to kind of broaden that, expand that even further, I remember that moment in LA and in Hollywood where I had that encounter with the Lord, and suddenly I was just in the throne room. Let's just say that I felt like I was in his throne room, in his presence, in such a real way, and I think I saw everything from his perspective at that point.
Mm.
And scripture says wisdom is the principal thing. And I just had the wisdom of God for a moment. And like just being able to see the landscape of the world and his heart for each and every person, how he just desires the best outcome for every single one of us. And it's not just, you build this ladder and then he'll finally accept you and here now I'll start believing the best, like from the very jump of things, God just desires the very best. And I felt that heavy in my heart. And I was able to just see things from his, when was able to see things from his perspective, I got uh, I got a better view, I guess, of what word emotion is supposed to do. So you
Mhm.
do gain greater levels of wisdom. I just saw what we are supposed to do the next year and the next. So that alone, because of that encounter was so real through my dance, uh, I definitely had imagined bigger and better ideas.
Mhm.
And I know that what that took place probably 20 years ago. So I can't tell you the exact details of what the next steps were, but
Mhm.
I remember just seeing things so clearly. They were so crystallized that I just knew what we were supposed to do next. Just because again, I gained his perception of things at that moment.
Yes, there's something called crystallized intelligence and also fluid intelligence. That's what came up of almost that together, like the crystal in the fluid water. my symbol. Amazing, amazing. And so, dancing with God. So two more points. I sometimes say, at least in my walk, as far as my spiritual walk, that it's kind of like doing the salsa. You've
Yeah.
danced with salsa with a partner, and you have to be very sensitive to when they're going to turn you, when they're going to dip, when they're going to go the opposite direction. And it's not like, hey, we're going to go the opposite direction on the next 8 count, right? It's like a slight nudge. And to me, being spiritually aware, being sensitive on all the facets, it's like that. It's like you're sensitive to the slight touch, and that I love that metaphor of the dance, and you're sensitive. Any thoughts there?
Well, first of all, I'm a horrible partner when it comes to dance. I just have to confess that. Um, I've been a hip hop street dancer professionally, as you shared a little bit of my
Your
work.
wife, she's a great partner.
But my wife is an amazing dancer. She's from Brazil, incredible Latin dancer. And when we would do any type of partnership, I would step on her toes. I'm like, I just don't know how to do this, how to lead somebody. And it was funny. One of the first jobs I booked was uh, I was in a music video and we're supposed to do the tango. And in the audition, I kind of faked it enough for people to think that, like, yeah, he might have this skill. But yeah, I was a horrible mess. Uh, so
Were you let go or
no, I stayed on, and I wasn't a. There was a lot of people dancing, so I was able to just
blend
be
in
in the
the
background and still get paid. There was a documentary. It was Julio Iglesias. He did like a documentary on dance and tango,
background?
and I was blending in with the crowd. But
Oh.
anyway, that was my mild confession. I already forgot the question because
Oh,
when you said
so
that.
sensitivity. But yeah, but I just wanted to make that point. The last point I do want to make is your leadership ability. Um, I call it prismatic leadership in my research with, like, I was doing research on Prince and Abraham Lincoln and other historical icons that teach brain health and brain capital, and their ability to step back and put other people on the platform to watch them shine, or to lead them to grow. I know you were probably the first one to put me on the stage or on the pulpit for sure, and I never forgot that. Now I'm a speaker. I'm doing that a lot, but to have someone, a mentor, to open their protected space. So what are your thoughts with how people can take that and look at that in their own life?
I really take my cues from Jesus. I think his leadership qualities exceed anyone that is considered an elite leader in our culture, in our society. Um, he brought 12 disciples who probably had dead end jobs, or the tax collector, of course, had the material possessions and finances and such, but he was hated by his own society. But he brought these people who were the not necessarily the people you think Jesus would recruit if he wanted to change the world. But he brought these. Some of them were considered, if you look in history, illiterate. Some of them really didn't have much ambition beyond just being a fisherman and such. But he caused them to change the world because he did that. He put them in positions where their leadership qualities would arise. The values that they carried, that he's been instilling in them, would be tested, and they would have to step up to a new level. And I think that's what we did with you. We saw genuinely this gifting that you carried, and we put you in positions. Okay, well, you're going to lead this workshop. Okay, you're going to speak here and take everything that you just shared with us, put it in a format where it's a 2-hour session, and be able to educate the people on finances or whatever the topic was. And I do that because I see Jesus do that. And so, if anything, if I'm gleaning from anybody's leadership qualities, it's Jesus. He did that constantly, where he says, I believe in you. You don't see it yet, but I believe in you. I see what you're carrying. I see how God has designed you. I see the giftings begin to surface, and I want to push it where you're starting to see it as the way I see it. And so a lot of the moments where we allowed people to excel and elevate beyond where their limitations that they created were keeping them and restricting them from experiencing the more that God had for them. I just saw Jesus do it so well, and uh, I just duplicated what I saw in Scripture
And
and wanted to live that way as a leader myself.
and that's such an important topic now, because with everything changing, AI coming up on one side, and the value of our brains, the capacity and the potential of our brain power is so much more important now, because everything is changing. So we have to have quick, nimble brains. What do you say to managers who just won't, for whatever egotistical reasons, they won't get out the way and point people and step back and let other people meet? I see that being a huge issue in corporate America, where they're keeping people down because they're afraid of
Yeah,
take
yeah.
over themselves.
And it's mostly because of what you just said. It's ego, it's pride. Uh, they never want to see people rise to their level. They feel more superior if people remain at a level that is inferior to where they are. And so they sometimes subconsciously are doing these things. Sometimes I don't even think they're aware that they're keeping people below their potential. Um, and so I think humility plays a big role for someone to really enter into a leadership that's going to allow people to flourish, allow people to experience more than where their capacity has left them or led them thus far under that person or the company's leadership role.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think we have to humble ourselves and allow people to soar, uh, and not worry about if they surpass us or not. We as Word in Motion, we passed the baton to Revolution Dance.
Mhm.
We did our dance festival, and we says, hey, we feel like the Lord is telling us to give you to pass the baton to you to do the next dance festival. So it's no longer going to be Word in Motion Dance Festival. They're going to start the first annual Revolution Dance Festival.
Oh, wow.
And for us, we're like, go beyond where we have gone.
Hmm.
Like we want to. My last chapter is telling people to surpass. It's called passing the baton. The last chapter, and we're asking people to go beyond anything that we've accomplished as a ministry. The 22 years that we have been influential in this world as a dance company. Uh, we're just pushing people forward and saying, hey, there's more to this. There's things that we didn't get to do that we believe the next generation can do it. And if they feel inspired and they feel charged up by that, and they do things that pass what we've been able to do and make greater impacts, then we've done well. a true leader is not someone that lets what they've done die with the end of what, you know, what appears to be the end of word emotion,
Mhm.
but a true leader allows the next people to step up even further.
Yeah, yeah, and understand they're a part of the story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the God story, because God sees it all, and that's amazing, and yeah, 22 years, and then you said 28. There was a 28 there. You said you had a I, I forgot why. Um, ah, amazing, amazing. So as we close up, what are just some final gems that you want people to get from the book?
Um, I think I'll just read a few on the back of the book.
Mhm.
Got to get my glasses on.
I know. I got mine too. Oh my goodness. I can't believe I have glasses now.
But I think it's a book that goes beyond people who are have interest in dance. It's a journey of someone's life.
Mhm.
But I wrote, trust God when He disrupts your plans. Surrender your gifts fully to His purpose. Embrace a calling bigger than your comfort zone. And I think what people can gain from the book is not, well, let me just read about someone using dance in ministry. It's a journey about a lot of steps of
Mhm.
of obedience. A lot of yeses when it didn't feel right, when I couldn't see it, when it was not comfortable, when it
Mhm.
didn't make sense, when the understanding was so limited and everything was shaky. And we just said, okay, God, if you're asking to do this, because you can see dance ministries now on TikTok. You can see dance ministries now on Instagram. It's normalized. It's something that many dance or many churches are welcoming and
Mhm.
creating.
So
Did
you
not
were
exist.
pioneers. You were imagine that. Wow, you are a pioneer
Did
of
not exist.
especially hip hop dance men.
No, hip hop did not exist. There was dance ministries, there were flags, there
Yeah.
were liturgical with white dresses, and but did not exist. When we started the dance festival was because of that, because we were seeing so many dancers that were so many Christians who were hip hop dancers, but they had no place to go to get training and discipleship.
Yeah.
And so we started the dance festival simply because we looked all across the United States. Everyone had wonderful contemporary dance intensives, ballet intensives, uh,
Wow.
lyrical dance intensives, and but no one had so what we were doing. So we started the Word of Motion Dance Festival
Mhm.
because we had hip hop, we had breaking, we had house, we had locking, we had popping, we
Wow.
had tribal funk, we had Latin funk, we had freestyle worship, and so this was something that I mean, over 1,000 dancers have come to our dance festival because there's people who became Christians that didn't know what to do with their gift.
Mhm.
And so now it's everywhere. You could find Christian hip hop dance workshops everywhere, but it did not exist in the 90s.
You were the
And and
pioneer.
so so that's what God asked us to do. But it's wonderful to see so many people using hip hop and street dance in ministry.
Yeah.
And it's glorious and we love it. It's absolutely wonderful. But yeah, that's something that we felt we had to create because it didn't exist.
And that's the a beauty of creative compassion. I've been talking a lot about that of that invisible to the visible. You made something visible that was in the invisible and in the need of other. You saw a need. And a lot of people see needs, but they don't act. You know, the ought to, like someone ought to do this. Well, if you're seeing it, it ought to be you then. Especially, yeah, and the fact that you opened up a space for people to continue to grow in that area, and for new people who didn't even know they were supposed to grow in that area. I know I didn't go because it was a need for me. I went because I was all around the area, but I learned so much even just by being connected and with Misty and Keely and all of your other great educators, right? I learned how to be a better educator in a non-dance area because of me attending the festival. And I think that's what creativity is going to be looking for now. People who know how to transfer information into different situations, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, well, thank you so much. And any last words, or where can people follow you and find the book and learn more about your podcast?
Well, dancingwithgod.org is the website where they can find all the information they need. That website would lead them to our podcast channel on YouTube. That website will lead them to opportunity to purchase the book. Yeah, I think you can find everything you need there. And my wife and I do gatherings. We teach Bible studies on a regular basis in Los Angeles. So if you're in that area, you can also find out how to get in touch with us if you want to be a part of that. Our next one is April 15th, and it's going to be taco night. So who doesn't want to show up to a Bible study on taco night? That's what I'm saying. But yeah, that's how they can find us on dancingwithgod.org. I think that's it. Yeah. I'm on Instagram. I'm, Tymme Reitz on Instagram.
TYMME as in zebra. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Go out there, move your body, dance with God, and know that you are amazing. Your brain is beautiful. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sharing your story of Pastor Tymme and your heart. And we know this will go around the world and inspire so many to explore this area in their walk and their life. Thanks so much. Bye.